Do you ever actually sleep stupid like I did last night? This is my range of motion right now. That's all I've got. That's my neck is so jacked up right now. It is so tight. It's so tight that breathing too hard, I can feel it down below my scapula. Like, oh, this is the worst. I'm going to get some blood flowing right now. Hopefully that'll help with some of the relative discomfort. But, oh my God, this is probably the worst I've ever had it. I've had it pretty bad before where, like, one side was stiff. This is like my whole being is screwed up. One arm underneath the head, and for some reason, me asleep decided to stack like 5 pillows and crane my neck in the most awkward way possible for 8 hours. Brilliant. Brilliant plan. Love it. So after taking a little bit longer than usual to warm up, I got under the bar, floor press today, managed to clear my top set, 254 for 7 repetitions, and then ran my back off work with 229 pounds for sets of 7 as well. Now, you would have laughed, or maybe not so much, watching me get up and down off the ground for the floor press. It was pretty pathetic. I had to use the bar and I had to set myself up perpendicular to the bar and get down straight and then very slowly grab onto the rack uprights in order to roll over to my back. It was a sad sight to see. Then I moved into some single arm cable rows, 72.5 pounds for sets of 15 per arm. And what I did notice right away is that one side struggled a lot more than the other, and I had to use quite a bit of body English to be able to hit the desired rep range. I did incorporate some different accessory work than what I had originally planned in this block, one of those being the face pulls, as I'm going to need to strengthen that upper back area because that's where a lot of the discomfort is coming from. So worked pretty light here with 55 pounds, working on control and trying to keep the pull as symmetrical as possible considering the circumstance. And then my tricep accessory work, I made sure was new stuff for me, things I don't usually work on, so that I could go a little bit lighter and in a higher rep range as to ensure more blood flow to the area without applying too great of a stress via intensity of load. So we had some thick bar, close grip presses, obviously employing the thick grips to make the bar itself quote unquote thick, 95 pounds for 4 sets of 20. And then from there transitioned into a cable press down variation using one arm. Now I've switched up from using a single D handle to actually I took the sleeve for the forearm roller and I attached it to the cable press down because I figured it would allow me to maintain a neutral grip, which is a little less awkward when doing single arm press downs as opposed to that single D handle, which is a little bit difficult to grip through the bottom end. And I'll be completely honest, waking up Thursday morning, I really didn't feel that hot either. In fact, I actually felt a little bit worse. My upper back and neck were much more tight. There was quite a bit more pain present. Not necessarily a good thing. However, assessing every exercise as I got into position with the warm-ups, I was very aware of whether or not it was making things better, the same, or worse, and nothing that I had to do on this particular workout created any more discomfort, and I did feel quite a bit better by the time the workout was complete. I've learned over time that as long as one is strategic and calculated, working with and around injuries is usually a much more progressive strategy than completely stopping training altogether. You do have to be cautious, you do have to be calculated, you do have to be strategic, but you can still make progress, you can still improve. You might have to pivot and prioritize other progressive outcomes that maybe weren't your primary concern, but you can still make good use of what would often be considered downtime for a lot of people. Barbell lunges on the top end for 198 pounds, 7 reps per leg, before backing off those lunges to 178 pounds respectively for 2 sets of 7 repetitions per leg, really building up that foundation on the lunges and starting to feel quite strong with these as a primary lift. From here, I went into a hip hinge variation that maybe you might not recognize, you might not be familiar with it. It's called the Dimmel deadlift, popularized by one of the top lifters that trained at Westside Barbell. The Dimmel deadlift is traditionally done in a much higher rep range than one might prioritize, that usually being somewhere between 20 to 25, 25 to 30. Sometimes it's acceptable in lower rep ranges. I mean, reasonably speaking, you could do whatever you want with it, depending on what you're trying to prioritize, but it's most commonly done in those higher rep ranges. So the Dimmel deadlift prioritizes a range of motion from just above the kneecap through to the lockout. And as you can imagine, there's an overwhelming amount of tension present on the glutes and erectors of the lower back. And it also contributes progressively to your grip endurance because you're holding a reasonable load for quite an extended period of time. In this particular workout, I'm working with 135 pounds for 3 sets of 30 consecutive repetitions. Then I finished off this lower body training session with some belt squat marches, 195 pounds of added load plus the orange bands for resistance, running 45-second rounds for 3 sets across, and we'll see how we feel come Saturday morning. So it'll be interesting to see how today's upper body session goes. This is the best my neck has felt all week, but it's still a little bit tender. So yesterday, well, actually I haven't slept a full night since Monday, so we'll have to see how this goes. Fingers crossed. Now I did have barbell overhead presses, and I had a backup option available if they felt poorly on the area of discomfort that I'm experiencing. However, through the warm-up sets, I didn't feel any added discomfort, and once I got a few repetitions in under the bar, I started to feel good. So instead of going heavy on the overhead press, I prioritized hitting some PRs in a higher rep range, that being the 10 rep range, because it had been so long since I had worked in that rep range. The top end set of 10, which was an all-time 10 rep max, was actually relatively easy for me, and you cannot discount the psychological benefit of being able to make progress through a setback period. So I cleared 121.5 pounds for a set of 10 and then backed it off for 2 sets of 10 and 95 pounds respectively. And then I got onto the wide grip pull down and realized that my upper back is dead. My left arm, after my elbow reached about 90 degrees, basically just went to zero and had very little strength comparatively. I'm working with 90 pounds here through to 100 pounds. I pyramid up 2.5 pounds per set for sets of 15 reps across. Usually I would be working with about 145 to 150 pounds in this rep range. And as you can see, that's about a 30% decrease in capacity. So frustrating, but it's a part of the process. Felt a lot better after I did get those wide grip pull downs done and got some blood flowing to that upper back. Then I moved into some thick handle dumbbell chest presses with 30 pounds, cleared a set of 50, then 40, then 30 respectively, hammering those triceps, and then transitioned into a standing French press with the easy bar, 45 pounds for 4 sets of 20, just pulling in a new variation, a light variation, just so that I can chalk up some easy wins because I have a feeling this block is going to be mainly a recovery block for me. So this was a reasonable tricep exercise that I still felt, especially after all of those thick-handled chest presses. However, it was not unreasonable in its application of stress to the impacted area. And I'll say, I've never really done a French press as a consistent part of my tricep accessory work. I might have mixed them in once or twice when I was 18 or 19 and trying to be a fitness model. These are brutal. My goodness. Deceptive. Very, very deceptive. My triceps were cooked by set 2, and set 4 was just unreasonable. I'm definitely going to feel those tomorrow or the day following. Then went into some reverse barbell curls. Did notice on the left arm it was actually difficult for me to maintain my grip on the bar. However, managed to clear sets of 15. Not too much weight on the bar here. And yes, I am curling in the squat rack, but just a friendly reminder, I own it. Shoulder and neck are still pretty kinked. Going on about a week now. It's definitely a lot better. It was maybe an 8 or 9. Now it's down to like 3, 4-ish, maybe a 5 when it flares up a little bit. So it's definitely improving. My sleep was a little better last night, considering the first few nights I literally got 2 hours of sleep. Last night, I slept for probably a total of 7 hours. Only woke up 4 times, which is better. First night I woke up 10 times in a row. It was horrible. But nevertheless, we're under the bar today. I'm going to be skipping the deficit deadlifts because that's a lot of strain on the traps and on the neck. I think that's probably a bad plan. But I will run the squats with longer rests and see how we do. And by prioritizing that longer rest period, I experienced no discomfort other than the fact that my legs are absolutely trashed by hitting a small volume increase with 282 on the bar for 6 sets of 7 consecutive repetitions. So from there, as I mentioned, I skipped the deficit deadlifts and moved right into the reverse hyper, 195 pounds for 5 sets of 8. And then that was a wrap on what became a bit of a frustrating week in the weight room under the bar.